Welcome to NASCAR Live Before Lock right here on Awesemo.com. I am Jason Floyd, and we are here to get you ready for today's Instacart 500. Of course, if you got any questions for Chris, start lining those up in the chat right now. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of Larson questions, Byron questions. We will definitely get into. Of course, that is the breaking news over the last couple hours of three drivers, and the other one being Cody Ware, of failing their pre-race inspection. So they're in the back of the field. So I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions about that. Of course, be sure to check out our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Go to monkeyknifefight.com. Player prop-based DFS contest I have over there where you can play everything from NASCAR, NBA, and so much more. And when you sign up using the promo code Awesemo, you'll get an instant first match deposit of up to $50. Chris, great to be in here on a Sunday with you. Actually, made one little player prop over at Monkey Knife Fight, so hopefully that one comes in for me. Yeah, had a nice evening last night playing a little UFC over there. But obviously, I guess when we talk about roster construction, I guess we got to really start off with that breaking news of most notably Larson and Byron going to the back of the field.
Yeah, what's up, Jason? Glad to be here. Looking forward to today's show. But yeah, the big news today, Kyle Larson. I'm sure we're going to get a lot of questions about that, how we're going to approach it. Personally, before the news broke, I was planning on having Kyle Larson in my cash games with Brad Keselowski, just loading up that front row and hoping they're the main dominators today. I'm not getting completely off of Kyle Larson, but I think in cash games today, I think you should probably pivot off of Larson to a guy like Denny Hamlin and reserve Larson for tournaments. And I didn't drop my exposure too much on Larson, but I did take a little bit off.
Yeah, I know we talked about Denny Hamlin yesterday on the strategy show. And one of the things that Phil had mentioned with Denny Hamlin, particularly on the DraftKings side of things, noting that it feels like he is underpriced over on DraftKings at $9,900, but $13,000 over on FanDuel. He's one of those guys that when we were talking about roster construction and how many dominators you're gonna put in your line. Before we get to dominators, what's obviously for the people that are going to put three dominators, how do you construct a roster when if you have three dominators, you're in that lower end of that 6 and under range?
Yeah, and personally, when I do those three dominator builds, I'm not loading up guys like Harvick, Elliott Logano, because when you do that, you really have to start dumpster diving. When I get into those three dominator lineups, I'm usually looking at a guy like Ryan Blaney, a Kyle Larson, or a Denny Hamlin type guy, just so I don't have to get down to that BJ McLeod range. But if you do those three dominator builds, you are going to have to get some drivers in that 5K range. So pairing them up with guys like Daniel Suarez, Anthony Alfredo, Corey LaJoie is kind of where you're going to have to live to make that work. But I think that's going to be fun because we need dominators at a track with over 300 laps.
For the single entry player, what's kind of your recommendation of how they should build a lineup?
So there's two approaches this week in either cash games or single entries. You're going to obviously have two dominators, but you're going to have to question if you want to go with Almirola for the place differential upside for your third driver, or do you want to get a dominator? If you want to go the extra dominator, I'd say that's got a higher ceiling. You have a better chance of taking down a tournament. But if you go with Almirola, you have that nice high floor baked in. We just got to hope there's only two main dominators, not like a minor third dominator.
I think when we talk about that single entry roster construction, people may be looking, at some drivers who are, not that high priced driver. They're in that 6, that 7, maybe even that 5K range. And two drivers that are coming up in ownership right now is Cole Custer and Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez, $5,900 over on DK, $6,700 for Custer on DraftKings. So what's kind of when you're seeing high ownership out of those two guys? I know yesterday, Phil, we were comparing Suarez to Alfredo, and he mentioned that he thought Alfredo was the safer option, but Suarez had the higher ceiling.
Yeah, he is starting one spot further back. Personally, I like Suarez just a little bit more, but it's like splitting hairs there. They are very, very close. And just to be fully transparent, my main lineup today, my two cheaper drivers are Cole Custer and Daniel Suarez. I'm eating the chalk there. I just feel like they're the best plays down low. You can obviously make a case for Anthony Alfredo. He's right there, $100 cheaper than Suarez. So if you need the extra $100, not too big of a deal, but I'm definitely back in on Cole Custer. I know I said I loved him last week and he ended up having an awful race. I think he was the highest owned driver on the slate, but got to have a short memory in DFS, and I'm willing to go right back to the well here.
Yeah, I got to have that short memory on Kevin Harvick.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I had way too much Kevin Harvick last week, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are joining us here on a Sunday afternoon that had the same type of pain that we had last week. And of course, if you ever do miss any of our shows, you miss the Awesemo NASCAR Strategy Show, which of course I host on Saturdays at 12 o'clock Eastern time with Phil. It is a part of the Awesemo Podcast Network. Check out everything we have podcast-wise over awesemo.com/podcast. Be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review on one of our podcast channels. Leave your Twitter handle or email, and that will qualify you for our weekly drawing to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner will be awarded every Friday, and reviews will be eligible to win for up to 1 year. So appreciate all the support that we do get there over at the Awesemo Podcast Network. Let's move on to Dominators. And I know, I was watching the show you had earlier, and you had mentioned that, look, it was, I want to say you said you started Ryan Blaney starting 8th and up. And Phil kind of basically had the same thought process in terms of Dominators, that basically he was saying anybody in the top 10. That's where you really need to be going for your Dominators. I guess, and obviously that's where you want to use Fancy Cruncher to your benefit, putting those groups in together. But, obviously Brad is the number one Dominator that everyone is looking at. Denny Hamlin is another one. Chase Elliott's up there as well. So what's kind of your thoughts on these Dominators? And is there someone in particular outside of Brad that you're finding yourself really going to a lot?
Yeah, so the thing about this week is there's just so many good Dominator plays. I'm not sure if you're having the same problem, but I just want to play all of these guys up top. Now, unfortunately, you have to leave a couple of guys like the odd man out to lower your ownership, but there's a lot of good plays up here. But I will say, looking back in research last year, the short flat tracks, which is what Phoenix is, there was sort of a big three, if you want to call it that: Chase Elliott, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. These guys were far and away the best drivers of these track types. They both, or not both, all three of them averaged over 80 DraftKings points per race. They were all in the top three, every single statistic at these track types last season. So I know they have a hefty price tag, but they can pay off those price tags easily if they get up front and lead a bunch of laps. But if you want some cheaper Dominators, Denny Hamlin, he's kind of that guy I'm pairing with Brad Keselowski in single entry GPPs or cash games just because of that price point. And the big thing is that Kyle Larson going to the rear, that opens the door for these guys like Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex to get those early Dominator points, because I thought originally that would be Kyle Larson, but that's out of the equation. So yeah, a lot of good Dominators up top, but you can really do yourself well just mixing and matching these guys for the most part.
You mentioned about Kyle Larson because obviously he was a driver that we were all looking at as potential Dominator. Now in the back of the field, let's talk about it from a cash aspect. What's your thoughts on Kyle as a cash play?
I'm going to personally pivot from Kyle Larson and cash. Originally, I had Brad Keselowski and Kyle Larson in my cash lineup because the drivers starting first and second, they've made the optimal lineup 3 times in a row here. I know people don't usually like to pair those guys up, but it's been an optimal strategy at Phoenix. But yeah, I'm going to pivot away from Kyle Larson and cash and just kind of go $300 more for Denny Hamlin's the safer approach.
As you look at, a guy like Chase Elliott, 11.5 on DK, 13.5 over on FanDuel. Martin Truex Jr. is a guy that we really didn't talk much about yesterday. What's your take about Martin here?
Yeah, I've noticed not a lot of people have been talking about Martin Truex Jr. That's kind of baffling to me. Not that Phoenix is a super amazing track for him, but last year in the spring race, he actually dropped to the rear, made his way through the field, and actually led around 12 to 15 laps before having an issue and wrecking out of the race. But I mean, Truex is one of the better drivers at the short flat tracks, mostly Martinsville, which is probably not the most comparable track to Phoenix, but still a short flat track. And I mean, if no one's going to talk about Truex at only $10,100, I like being a little bit over the field on Truex in tournaments today if he's going to go overlooked.
Yeah, just looking at our ownership in terms of Martin Truex, the only other driver in that top range that's getting lower ownership than him is actually Kyle Busch.
Yeah. I mean, the price tag on Truex is pretty good too. I mean, the last time we've had him this cheap has probably been quite some time. So starting 5th and with Kyle Larson going to the rear, just makes it even easier for him to pick up those early Dominator points.
By the way, appreciate News God hopped in over our premium Slack. Chase Elliott to the rear.
Oh, that's fun.
Okay, so I appreciate News God, a great resource we have over here at Awesemo. How does that now change your philosophy?
Well, I want to say I want to drop him a little bit, but if you guys don't remember, the championship race last year, Chase Elliott went to the rear and he was in the top 10 within like the competition caution. He was that fast. Now it's a little bit different because that was the championship race, and if you're not in the final four, the drivers don't try it as much, and they're not going to race Chase Elliott as hard as they normally would. I still think Elliott's fine. If you want to drop him like 5% in your exposure, I mean, whatever, I get it. And up a guy like Martin Truex Jr. because they're not going to the rear, but it doesn't change too much for me for Chase Elliott because I was already assuming Brad Keselowski would get those early laps sled.
So Hendricks Motorsports actually had a tweet they put out there just called minutes ago saying, due to inspection issues, the number 5, 9, and 2014s will start from the rear of the field. Does that scare you when you have a trio of cars from the same team all going to the back?
Hey, if they're trying to cheat, maybe I want them on my team even more.
I mean, it's just something kind of came to my mindset of like, man, like, I mean, obviously they're all sharing information together, but I would sense it's got to be a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I hate, when a guy goes to the rear, it just makes life a little bit harder because you never know. You get into an issue with a guy that's, not up to their, tier level. So it's a little concerning. I wouldn't mind dropping Chase out exposure a little bit, but I think that makes him even better of a tournament play today. People are going to get off of him because he should have one of the best cars in the field.
Yeah, that's something to definitely take into there. Place differential. I know. I guess we can probably just start off with Eric Almirola starting 32nd.
Yeah, I mean, if he was a little bit cheaper, he's an absolute smash play. Over on FanDuel, I believe he's only $8,000. He's a very, very easy fit over there. I can't imagine not wanting to play Eric Almirola. The problem is on DraftKings, you have to make that decision. Do you want the third Dominator or do you want that, high floor upside with Eric Almirola? The thing is, though, he's very good at Phoenix. Typically in the top 10 here as an average finish inside the top 10 the past 6 races and multiple top 5 finishes. So assuming Stewart-Haas isn't complete junk once again, I mean, a top 15 can get you there for Almirola. He just doesn't have that high ceiling as another Dominator.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at someone to see how much Chase Elliott I actually have, whether I want to make a change or not there. But yeah, that's man, it happens. These are the type of things that do happen on race day. Mentioned some other drivers who've got Alex Bowman starting 21. I know he was coming up in some crunches for me. Looking at some of the low, and I guess we can lead into the punt plays. A Davidson's 38th. Can't go any worse.
No, I mean, he could probably stay there, but he can't hurt you. He can't lose any points. I also like Justin Haley down there. Those are my two, really the only guys I would target, but Justin Haley's not in the worst car in the world. And I feel like he has an outside chance of getting a top 30, which doesn't kill you at $5,000. It lets you get in those Keselowskis, Elliott's, Logano's.
And of course, also we should mention Garrett Smithley in for JJ Yeley. Yep. Is another one. So I believe it's now we have 5 cars that all have been moved to the back of the field now.
And last I checked, Garrett Smithley was not on DraftKings, so you might just not have to worry about that.
Yeah. So I mentioned, one of the comments we got over our Slack was, is it okay to keep Chase in a DraftKings single entry lineup, but Larson not so much? And then Phil makes the note. It only took Chase 26 laps to go from dead last to 10th in the fall race.
Yeah, he was just so fast. That's why I'm not that concerned because it's Chase Elliott. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. Of course, let's move on to some core plays. What's in terms of DraftKings? I think Denny Hamlin, obviously Brad's going to be a core play, but outside of the names that everyone's thinking about it, are there some core plays that you have?
So just looking at some of my highest owned drivers, a couple guys you did not mention. Denny Hamlin, he is my second highest owned driver today, right alongside Brad Keselowski. I just can't get past that price point. And plus, Kyle Larson going to the rear, just up more exposure for me. So I love Denny Hamlin here. 4 top 5s the past 6 races, has a recent win, may not been in the lineup recently. Also like Joey Logano quite a bit. I can't remember if you just mentioned him and Cole Custer. Those are some of my highest owned drivers today that I just like their price point and how they performed at short flat tracks.
Yeah, I know Logano was definitely a play that, we had talked about, I guess, over on FanDuel, I guess when you look at those core plays, in names that maybe would not stick out to you, is there someone maybe in the 8K range on FanDuel that maybe is kind of a core play?
So I do like Tyler Reddick quite a bit. I believe he's $7,900 on FanDuel or $7,500. But last year in the spring race, he had a bad finish, but don't let that scare you away because he had a legit top 5 car. The This was back when we had practice too, and Kyle Busch used to be good. He actually just straight up passed Kyle Busch, and his car was super fast, had close to 40 fast laps in that race before wrecking out. So Tyler Reddick, I'm not sure if that's going to keep his ownership down too much, but I do think he's a pretty solid play for a chance of a top 10 finish at that price point.
Of course, if you want to get access to our ownership and driver projections, you got to have an Awesemo Plus subscription. And we do have a great deal going on right now to celebrate March Madness in the second half of the NBA season. For first-time users of Awesemo Plus, get 50% off an Awesemo Plus weekly pass when you use the promo code Shamrock at checkout. That's $15 for full Awesemo Plus access to all the DFS sports we have. There you see it there on the screen right now. This offer is valid through March the 17th, so just in time for March Madness and all the craziness of next week. So you see it right there on the screen. So be sure to check that out over at awesemo.com. Let's move along. Value plays, and I guess, you start to look at this under 6K range. I don't know if you want to look at Corey LaJoie 3,000 on DraftKings, or, do you want to maybe spend $500 more, or excuse me, on FanDuel, or do you want to spend $500 more for Anthony Alfredo?
See, the thing is, Corey LaJoie, I like where he's starting, but it seems like his car is almost worse this year. Like, I thought it was going to be a step up because they were getting some help from Hendrick. Obviously, he hasn't had the best start to the season, but starting 33rd, for the most part, all these guys like Corey LaJoie and below, I just kind of mixed and matched them for the most part because I don't have a strong take on any of them. Priest is fine where he is. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., that's someone that I was kind of surprised at his price point. I know he's starting so far up, but for only $100 more, you can go from Davison to Ricky Stenhouse, which just sounds kind of crazy to me because Stenhouse has top 15 potential. But my favorite guys down there for the most part are the Daniel Suarez, Anthony Alfredo, LaJoie trio.
Yeah. I think, when you start to, even though I did mention I do have a lineup with Davidson in there, I didn't want to go lower than that Suarez and Alfredo in all reality. That's kind of where I want to go. But of course, we are here to answer listener questions. So of course, start lining those up, whether it's in YouTube or in our premium Slack channel. Let's start over in Slack. Jets World says, is it negative correlation to play Brad and Denny together on FanDuel?
No, I don't think it is. I know it feels a little bit weird just stacking guys starting closer to the front, especially from the start of the season. We've had so many place differential plays, but at Phoenix, I believe it's the past 4 races, we've seen the guys starting first through second in the optimal lineup every single time. The guys starting up front are just the guys that are accumulating the majority of the Dominator points here at Phoenix. I don't think that's a bad play.
Another one would like to know, what are your fancy crunchers rules for today?
So all I did was today, I had 2 settings, and I put everyone from Ryan Blaney and above and Christopher Bell, because he's starting so far up, in the Dominator group. And I put at least 2 of these drivers in all my lineups. And then I set a scrub group, which would be everyone below Stenhouse on DraftKings, which would be Davison and below. And I put a max 1 for lineup. Okay.
Yeah. It's, especially, that my thing has been, if you're going that 3 Dominator build, just how low do you want to go in a 3 Dominator build?
Yeah. What I would like to be as low as is Justin Haley. I do have like 1 or 2% of these guys like Quinn Houff, Timmy Hill, Josh Bilicki. I'm probably just throwing money away on those lineups, but I just have it in there just in case. But Justin Haley, I do feel somewhat comfortable with.
Of course, be sure to subscribe to Awesemo right here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. We'll have NBA coverage starting at 5 o'clock Eastern time today, as myself and Terry will have the NBA deeper dive. And then live before lock will be with EMAC and Eric, as they'll get you ready for the NBA action tonight. Looking down some other questions that have come in here. Jim says, what do you think about Buescher and Newman today?
Those are kind of guys, they're right in that Cole Custer, Ryan Newman, Chris Buescher range. I'm not going to play 100% Cole Custer. So those guys are just direct pivots off of Cole Custer for the most part for me today. I think all 3 of them have top 15 upside. For where they're starting, it's not like the most exciting thing in the world, but they're not bad plays either. So I just have like around 20% of them.
Number 1 must have on FanDuel, no matter the price.
I like Eric Almirola. I mean, starting back in 32nd, he's very affordable over there. I know doesn't matter the price, but still, I mean, when you compare him with some other Dominators, pretty easy over there. I like that a lot.
Cash question here from Jeff: Alfredo or LaJoy? And this is a FanDuel question. He's looking to pair them with Kozlowski, Logano, Elliott, and Amarola.
If you want the extra place differential spots, Corey LaJoy starting a little bit further back. I feel like Anthony Alfredo's like a safer bet for a better finish. So I'm going to side with Phil there. I know he's saying you like Anthony Alfredo quite a bit over on DraftKings. I'll just side with it on FanDuel as well, just because I feel like we can trust him to get a top 25 finish better than we can LaJoy.
Yeah. You mentioned about Amarola. Alan asked, should you fade him in a GPP?
And in tournaments, I like pivoting to guys like Ryan Blaney. I know, big surprise there, but I like pivoting to guys like Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, Bowman, MDB, just to get away from that Almirola chalk, because these guys have similar upside, if not higher upside than Almirola. I don't think he's an absolute lock.
By the way, we haven't talked about, you are the president of the Ryan Blaney fan club. Yep. We got a lot of Blaney shares today.
Oh, we do. I'm planning on being overweight on Blaney today. It's just he's so cheap, $9,300. We finally saw the speed back last week. I know it's been a rough start to the Ryan Blaney fan club this year, but finally got back on track last week, and I'm thinking he can have another solid run because he's, for the most part, he should be a top 5 contender here at Phoenix. I believe 3 out of the past 4 races he's been inside the top 6, and the Penske cars have brought a lot of speed to the short flat track, so I'm definitely on Blaney today. I might be biased, but I love that price point.
As I'm kind of catching up on some of the chat here, I think the one thing about Chase Elliott, you gotta, you would just wonder about is, let's say you had, let's just throw a number, 40% Chase Elliott out there. I don't know if I would drastically change that number.
That's right around where I am at. I think I'm like at 35, 40. I have not changed it yet, and I haven't felt the itch to do that yet. So I'm thinking I'm going to stay.
Yeah, because you got to wonder is, let's say, prior to this news that his ownership was 40%. I imagine there's going to be people who are going to, swap them out of lineups, especially like, let's just say you're in a 3 max, maybe, someone's got 3 lineups, had 2 of them with Elliott. Maybe they take Elliott out of one of them. So there could be a way to make this work in your favor. Yeah,
for sure. And if you're playing a lot of Brad Keselowski and Denny Hamlin, it shouldn't. That almost kind of helps you out because you're expecting those guys to lead the laps early on. Then Chase Elliott can come in the second half of the race and dominate. So I really don't think it's too big of an issue.
This is a great question I just saw in Slack in related to Kyle Larson. It just said, is Larson a terrible idea now?
No, I don't think he is at all. Similar to what I said for last year's race, Chase Elliott just flew through the field, and Kyle Larson's in similar equipment. He's also one of the best drivers in the entire field. He won last week. He should have a ton of speed. Would we be that shocked if Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson in the top 10 after the competition caution? I don't think I would be. And at that point, you're kicking yourself because you faded him.
What's your thoughts about Alex Bowman today?
Alex Bowman's just one of those fine place differential plays. He's kind of similar to Matt DiBenedetto, not as good of a place differential play as Eric Almirola, but Alex Bowman, he's part of the Hendrick Motorsports team. It's had a lot of speed so far this year. I know he had an issue last week, which killed his race, but the interesting thing with Bowman at Phoenix is his finishes haven't been that great. He had a really good race here where he dominated, but outside of that, he hasn't finished inside the top 10 here in the past 6 races, but I'm not going to look too much into it. He should be a top 10 guy outside of any mechanical issues today.
Michael says, how many laps for cars like Elliott and Larson to get through the field at a track like Phoenix that seems hard to pass?
Yeah, people do get worried about when it's hard to pass, but the faster cars are going to pass the slower cars. I'm never too concerned about that. We've seen that multiple times where guys at Phoenix can just fly through the field. So, I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the top 15, top 10, at least close to it by the time the competition caution was out, which I believe is lap 25 or 30 today.
Kurt Busch or Briscoe on DraftKings? I
like Kurt Busch's price a lot. He's one of my favorite tournament plays, although it looks like his ownership's getting a bit up there. So I think he's almost a cash play at this point.
There's another one about Kurt Busch. You just mentioned kind of what you like about him. Someone asked about a single entry DraftKings GPP.
Yeah, but personally, he's actually in my single entry DraftKings GPP lineup. So yeah, I'm right on board with that. He's just a top 10 machine. He's never a really exciting play, but sometimes you don't need the super exciting play. Just give me that consistent guy.
Chandler says, thoughts on Harvick with everyone seem to be low on him makes me want to play him even more.
Yeah, I've heard people. I feel like you're on 2 sides this week. You're either going to fade Kevin Harvick or you're just buying the narrative that everyone's done with him and he's perfectly fine. And he's going to come out and crush Phoenix like he typically does. He was in the optimal lineup last year in Phoenix. The thing is, that's a real tough price tag to get to. And when you're playing a bunch of Kevin Harvick, you're taking away from guys like Chase Elliott and Joey Logano. Now, something that just came in my head with Chase Elliott going to the rear, there's an opportunity there to up your Kevin Harvick exposure, which something I might do just a little bit. But even then, it's just that price point for a guy that hasn't really been dominating too much since the start of last year's in the playoff. It's a little bit risky because it's a big price tag to pay.
News guy wants to know if you've got a FanDuel core for a single entry contest.
Just similar to what I said earlier, I like Eric Almirola quite a bit. Also, looking at the ownership, it looks like Joey Logano, Keselowski are going to be very high owned over there, and I like both of those guys quite a bit. I feel like there's a lot of Dominator potential, and at least Logano's not going to the rear, so we don't have to worry about that. So definitely liking those three guys.
This is a DraftKings GPP question. Logano, Haley, Hamlin, Buescher, or Larson, Custer?
Kind of like in the Hamlin, Buescher there, because when you get to Haley and those kind of guys, it's just how much can you really trust them? So I feel like the combination of Hamlin and Buescher, probably the safest way there.
Yeah, he was mentioned that I guess this would be for a third Dominator in his build, which obviously would lead to why are you that low?
Yeah, for sure.
Thoughts on Kurt Busch and Tyler Reddick together in a lineup?
Yeah, I don't think that has any negative correlation whatsoever. I like their price points quite a bit. So yeah, I'm a big fan of both. I have at least 20% of both of those guys today.
Someone had mentioned about Harvick and whether should you be higher on him now with all these drivers going to the back of the field?
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of came in my head. I wasn't really thinking about that when the news first dropped, but now that I've had some time to think about it, there is an opportunity to up your Kevin Harvick exposure because Elliott and Harvick, those are the two highest priced drivers on the slate. And now Chase Elliott's kind of on an even playing field with Harvick where he doesn't have that track position now. He's going to be in the back, so he's going to have to move through the field just like Kevin Harvick. So I actually do think there's a reason to maybe want to up your Kevin Harvick exposure and drop a little bit of Chase, but I'm not sure I'm willing to do that just yet.
One of our subscribers in our Slack channel would like to know what do you use for randomness for NASCAR crunching?
Some weeks I don't use it, but this week I did use 15% because from the start of the season, we don't have as much data to work with. So as of right now, I do have 15% just to play around with it a little bit. And I'm kind of liking the builds it's given me.
Yeah. Reddick and Custer on a GPP on FanDuel?
Yeah, no problem with that at all. I think their price tags. If I know Custer's more expensive, we're over on FanDuel, but he finished inside the top 10 here last year in the spring race, and he was pretty good at the short flat track. So I'm definitely down with those two.
Stan asked about how much Joey Logano. I'm going to rephrase the question. How much is too much Logano?
I said in my video earlier this week that you can make a case that Joey Logano is the best play in the slate. He had the best average finish at these track types last year. He won this exact race last year as well. Best average green flag speed rating. If you want to make Joey Logano your highest owned driver and go like double the field on 60%, would I personally do that? Probably not, because I want to get exposure to more Dominators, but I would not fault you for that. But I don't think you should probably go anything above like 60 if you really want to take a stance.
Sam wanted to know, is there going to be a competition yellow?
Yeah, last time I saw it was either lap 25 or lap 30. I think it might be 30 because it's a shorter track, but it's definitely going to be right around there.
Next up, I think we did someone ask about Ryan Newman and Buescher a little earlier.
Yes, they did.
Yep. I thought we did. Hamlin or Blaney?
Oh man, put me on the spot like that. Unfortunately, we have to go Hamlin there as much as I want to say Blaney, just because he's a little bit easier path to dominate. And his numbers at Phoenix have been very, very good. So I'm going to side with Hamlin. In tournaments, I do like getting to Blaney. And I like pairing them up together as well.
Next up, any love for Christopher Bell?
So that's an interesting one because he now has Kyle Busch's old crew chief, which if you guys look at Kyle Busch's numbers in the past, I mean, Kyle Busch was an absolute monster at Phoenix. So he's in a good car now too. He was also good here in the Xfinity series. The problem is starting fourth, it puts it in a bind because the guys he's priced around like Reddick, Byron, MDB, Bowman, these guys have way more place differential upside. And the chances that Christopher Bell dominates is pretty low because he's going to have to pass his teammate Denny Hamlin. He's going to have to get past Brad Keselowski, which is no easy task, but there is an outside chance Christopher Bell hangs in the top 5 today and maybe he gets up front at some point. So I like having a sprinkle of Christopher Bell, but that's really about it.
What's your thoughts on Michael McDowell?
I don't believe I had any Michael McDowell today. I mean, the thing is, he's just starting so far up, and I'd rather get the Chris Buescher, Ryan Newman, Cole Custer. The thing, he got an average finish of 25.5 here, average running position at 26.8. The short flat tracks for him last year weren't all that great either. So it's just, I'd rather get to the guys that are priced a little bit above him. Then right below him, we have those place differential cheap guys, which I'm kind of leaning towards.
Now, when it comes to how to win at NASCAR DFS, we do have a great video series that Alex and Phil put together. You can check that here on our YouTube channel. They broke it down into the various track types of how you need to be thinking about your lineups based on the type of race that they're at. So you got to definitely check that out. Of course, I mentioned about the questions that we're getting in our premium Slack account. Of course, that's a great perk that we have, part of the Also Plus membership. As you get in there, you can talk with fellow DFS players. You can talk with Phil or whoever you want to talk to that's a part of the Awesemo staff to help develop your lineups here for today. So you definitely got to check out that premium Slack account there. Which I'll mention right now, a question I'm seeing in our premium Slack account, FanDuel GPP, Matty D or Eric Amarola.
And Matty D is a little bit enticing because of the ownership, because everyone's going to go to Amarola, but I still like Amarola there. Starting so far back, he can't continue to suck this much. It just can't happen.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at his ownership, not bad ownership. He's not one of the top guys. But you definitely get some good ownership there. In terms of that, better punt on DraftKings, Alfredo or Priest?
Anthony Alfredo offers you a little bit more of a floor because Priest is starting pretty far up inside that top 20. So Anthony Alfredo does offer you a little bit higher floor, which is what I'd lean with.
What about your thoughts on Ross Chastain on DraftKings?
So he's in a decent car. This is what Kyle Larson used to drive, and Kyle Larson put up some pretty strong numbers. Although I say this every single week, he's not going to put up Kyle Larson-like numbers, so don't expect that. But he can be a top 15 contender at a below 7K price point. So I have a decent chunk of Ross Chastain today just because of that price.
Kurt and Logano or Hamlin and Amarola?
Hamlin and Amarola for me.
Chastain or Briscoe with price factored in on DraftKings?
I would go Chastain there just because of the price. I don't personally have too much Briscoe today, which is kind of weird because he's starting so far back, but I've definitely been landing on a lot of Chastain today.
We mentioned a lot about Kurt Busch. What about Kyle Busch?
Yeah, the thing is, he's really good at Phoenix. If you're just looking at a stat sheet or the numbers, it would tell you just to lock and load Kyle Busch because this guy's phenomenal. 2 wins here recently, 5 top 5s. I think he could be a top 5 guy. The problem is he just doesn't dominate these days. There's no practice and you can't fine tune his car. And it's just hard to expect that to change without having practice. So I have a little bit of Kyle Busch today. I think like maxing him around 10 to 15% is probably a decent range to be in, but I just have a hard time seeing him dominate until we get practice back next year.
Jay says, why is Ricky Rex so cheap? Shane follows up, just the odds to wreck, and most likely goes backwards.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Because they're daring us to play him. And if we do that, we know he's going to wreck.
I mean, I guess this has got to be the question. With starting 11th, what is the path to him being optimal?
He's going to have to hold his position and hope for a top 10 finish. I'm trying to look at the heat map here where he can finish to where it's not an awful day. So if he just held his position in 11th place, he's getting 32 fantasy points, which is actually pretty good for being $5,500. Because if we're talking about a guy like James Davison, where he's starting in 38th, for him to get to 32 points, he's going to have to finish right around 24th place, which is just not going to happen. So I mean, there's paths for Ricky Stenhouse. Even if he just finishes like in 15th place, which is something I could see happening, that's still around 24 fantasy points, which is not bad at his price point.
Single entry DraftKings core. I mean, I guess that part of that question has got to start with I think you develop 2 lineups. Mm-hmm. One with 2 dominators and the second one with a 3 dominators, and then just see what you like better.
Yeah, personally, when I was having that same dilemma, I was looking at like a Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, and then I'm either going Eric Almirola there or I'm going Ryan Blaney as my 3rd dominator. That's the paths I've been finding myself in.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with Almirola to me is just, do you want to, do you I'm trying to see what, his ownership's not all, it's nice, but it's not outrageous of what you have to go there. I mean, I guess the question I think you got to think about is, depending on how big of the field is, what do you think his ownership's going to be, and what's the ceiling if he is optimal?
Yeah. So looking at where he could finish, Almirola starting all the way back in 32nd. If he just hits his average finish today, we're talking around like 58, 60 DraftKings points, assuming he picks up a fast lap or two, it's really not that bad because if you were going the Ryan Blaney route, we have to get him some laps, let him fast laps because if he finishes right around where he starts or gets a top 5 finish, that's fine, but he's not going to outscore Eric Almirola. So the safer route would be Almirola, but if you want that high ceiling, I like that third Dominator build.
Hamlin and Newman or Elliott and Haley on DraftKings?
First one for me, just because when I hear Haley, it just kind of brings down the lineup a little bit.
No, that's definitely true there. Chastain and Buescher or Reddick and Newman?
I'll go with Reddick and Newman. I just feel like the upside for Reddick's better than everyone else in there.
Looking at maybe some drivers that we necessarily haven't touched on a ton here. I mean, I think we've gotten to a lot of them. We briefly touched on William Byron at the beginning. Of course, we now know he's at the back of the field. What is the path for him?
I don't think it changed too much for me. Obviously, he's going to have to work his way back up to the field. But when I was wanting to play William Byron this week, I wasn't expecting Dominator points. Yeah, I was hoping for some fast stops mixed in there, but I don't think he's going to get up front and dominate. The thing is, it's a pretty good track type for him. He's actually not that bad at Phoenix. I know he had a good race last year in the fall race, and I still think he can work his way back up. He can get a top 10 finish. While it's not the most exciting thing in the world, he seems a bit too cheap for the speed that the Hendrick Motorsports cars have brought so far this year. So I personally did lower my ownership a little bit since he went to the back, but overall, I mean, he could get a top 8 finish, which might be good enough for optimal unless some of these other guys in this price range happen to have like absolutely phenomenal days.
Appreciate the super chat there, Mike. He says, guys, do I play Kyle, Amarola, or Larson in a GPP, knowing Larson is in the back?
I know it's GPP, but you're looking for ownership, but I still like Almirola out there because I can't trust Kyle Busch to dominate these days. And Kyle Larson, he's going to have to work his way back up through the field. I'd rather pivot to like a Denny Hamlin there and then just pick up Almirola for the high floor.
Yeah, I appreciate there in the super chat there. Of course, if you got any other questions, that's another great way to get your question here on the show. Legalize over our Slack wants to go, who does Chris not like today?
There's so many good plays today. I will say one guy I don't like too much. It sounds kind of crazy, but I don't like Kevin Harvick that much. I am planning on being pretty low in the field compared to Kevin Harvick. I'm talking sub 10% ownership. I also don't really like Eric Jones too much today, which I typically do like Eric Jones, but starting 14th, I feel like he's kind of maxed out there where he just doesn't offer us too much upside. Also not a big fan of Michael McDowell. So those are kind of 3 guys I'm avoiding for the most part today.
Of course, appreciate everyone here on a Sunday afternoon watching the NASCAR Live Before Lock show. Of course, be sure to subscribe to Awesemo right here on YouTube. That'll let you know we got all the shows that we have each and every day. Of course, hit that notification bell so you know when a video is live here on the channel. Also, be sure to give us a thumb up. Dave would like to know if you could touch on the Alfredo double Dominator builds. Can that lead us to victory?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if we're talking double Dominators, I think that's what the majority or all of your lineup should at least have, at least 2 Dominators. So yeah, they're perfectly fine going all the way down to Alfredo to fit in those 2 down builds.
Next up, 2 questions related to Cole Custer. First up is Kurt Busch or Custer. And the second one is Custer or Matty D in GPPs.
I'll go with Kurt Busch and Matty D. I like Cole Custer a lot today, but compared to those guys, there's a massive price difference, and I would just rather get up to those guys because I feel more comfortable about them getting top 10s than I do Cole Custer.
Any faith in Martin Truex Jr.?
Yeah, he was a guy I was mentioning earlier where he just does not have much chatter about him this week, and I think that's a mistake because a driver of his level at $10,100, he's usually in that 11K range. We're getting him at a discount today, and if people are going to forget about him, I like being over the field because, man, Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott going to the back, it makes it even easier. Earlier, it was just Kyle Larson. Now with Chase Elliott gone, again, even easier for Truex to dominate.
Truex or Kyle?
I'll go Truex there.
Michael says Bubba Wallace fade of the year. And I know we had a question related yesterday to Bubba Wallace of just, how should we project him?
I think Bubba Wallace is a solid play today. Last week, he had a mechanical issue early, which kind of killed his day. But when he got back on the track, his lap times were actually pretty good. So, but when you go laps down, you really can't make that up unless there's so many cautions, which just wasn't going to happen. So Bubba Wallace starting 25th. I mean, this isn't a terrible track for him. He does have a top 10 finish, 2 top 15s and 3 top 20s. He's in better equipment now. I mean, I actually like Bubba Wallace quite a bit as a mid-range play today for place differential.
By the way, Alex has updated the projections over awesemo.com. Check that out with all of the changes. Obviously, most notably with the Chase Elliott change there in terms of what they're there. So you can definitely check that out over at awesemo.com. Rank top 5 of who you think is going to dominate today.
So I obviously have Brad Keselowski first because he's on the pole. I feel like he can hold his own out there. He's got a good pit stall. It's like Denny Hamlin up there. He's starting right behind Brad Keselowski now because there's no more Kyle Larson. Now, after that, I probably would have said Chase Elliott. Now he's going to work his way back to the field. I still feel pretty confident in him. So I'd probably put him behind Logano now just because Logano doesn't have to work his way through the field. So I'd say Brad Keselowski, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, and then probably a mixture of either like a Truex or a Ryan Blaney.
I know this is more for people who are new to NASCAR, but I think it's a great question for you to answer. And this came from Connor, says, is Larson's place differential still from second, even though he's starting from the back?
Yeah, unfortunately, he's going to be scored from second. So when he starts the race, don't be alarmed, but he's going to start with like a negative 30-some points, but he should be able to make that up. But he will not be scored from the back.
And look at this. If today's your first time playing NASCAR, do not check your scores until the end of the race. Yep. I'm just going to tell you, it's because it's going to change so much throughout the race. Like the only thing I do is I look at ownership.
Yep.
That's when I'm going on there. I'm not even paying attention to what the score is. I'm not paying attention to where I'm ranked at. I'm just looking straight up ownership to see, okay, who's my leverage place?
You can go from first to last place in a matter of 2 laps. It's crazy.
I remember that was like the first time I played NASCAR DFS. I'm like, man, I was doing so well. How am I like in the back of the field now?
Yep. Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's fun though. It's crazy though.
Yeah. Single entry GPP question: Byron or Amarola?
Oh, it's enticing to go with Byron for the lower ownership, but Amarola, if price isn't an issue, I'll just take Amarola there.
I'm sure I know the answer to this question: Blaney or Matty D in a GPP?
Yeah, you know the answer, Blaney.
I could have pretty much answered that question, before that. I guess the question for Matty D is more of, what is that path to, being in an optimal lineup?
Pretty much contending for a top 10 finish. Now, the problem is he's priced right beside Eric Almirola and Alex Bowman, who both offer place differential upside as well. But Matty D is pretty much that 4th Penske car. He's on Wood Brothers Racing, but it's pretty much a Penske car, and they tend to run very well with these track types. And looking at the recent finishes for MDB at Phoenix, 8th, 13th, and 13th, and that can get the job done at where he's priced at today.
FanDuel single entry GPP: Kyle Busch and Martin Truex, or Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney?
I like the second option there. Joey Logano is I feel like he's one of the best plays today.
Haley or Preece?
I want to say Haley because of the place differential, but I feel like Preece is more likely to get a top 20 today. I know he's starting far up, but I still take that top 20 upside.
I mentioned about the comment Phil had our Slack channel a little while ago about Chase Elliott and how quick he can move up. When you look at these cars that are now at the back of the field, like, you're just only thinking 10, 20, 30 laps later, they're kind of back where you expect them to be?
Yeah, because if I fade them, I'm going to look smart early on. But once that competition caution happens and they're back in the top 10, you're nervous wreck the entire race because you're like, why did they end up fading these guys? Because they went right through the field, which is probably what's going to happen today.
Truex or Blaney?
I personally am more Blaney because of the price point. And if it was just raw projection, I have Truex a little bit higher than Blaney, but I do like the price better on Blaney if you want to try to play around with that more.
Here's a name that we just got a question on that I'm pretty sure we have not brought up today. That'd be Austin Dillon, starting 13th.
Yeah, he's not typically the greatest of the short flat tracks, had an average running position, average finish around 20th place last year. Although at a similar track in Richmond, I believe that was the race, he actually had a very, very strong car. The thing is, he's starting in 13th place. It makes it a little bit tough to click on his name. I think the price point's fine. I think he can hang in the top 15. It's just the upside is very, very limited because I can name 15 cars that I can pass him today. So he's just going to have a really strong running. Hopefully he unloads the car fast, which can certainly happen. Just not a big fan of him today.
Preece or Stenhouse?
I like Stenhouse a little bit more just because I feel like he's got the higher finishing position upside and he's also a little bit cheaper.
Blaney or Amarola?
The ceiling for Blaney is higher because he can be a potential dominator. The floor is higher for Amarola. Personally, I have a little bit more Blaney today.
With a 1 mile track, do you expect cars to be lapped early? And does this allow for fast lap Dominator points for a guy like Chase early on?
Yeah, it can certainly happen. I was looking at the lead lap finishes last year. I believe it was around 12 to 13 cars in the spring race, and it was more in the fall race. But yeah, cars are going to go lap down for sure pretty quick, especially those guys like Davison, Quinn Houff. They're going to be lapped down today.
So looks like Quinn Houff is also going to the back. I'm sure that really affects your roster construction. Unapproved adjustments.
Yeah, I had like 1% Quinn Houff, I think. So whatever. That lineup's probably dead anyway.
Yeah, so so it's Quinn Houff, Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Cody Ware, and Garrett Smithley all to the back. Garrett Smithley is because of the driver change.
Yep.
Thoughts on Corey LaJoie?
It's been hard to play him this year so far. I mean, he's starting in good spots. He's $6,000. His history at Phoenix, it's not great. Average running position of 30.2, finish of 32.6. I think he can be a top 30 guy, but I do find myself going with guys like Daniel Suarez and Anthony Alfredo a little bit more today.
Now, if you rock the Awesemo avatar on your DFS profile, you'll be eligible to win a free month of Awesemo Plus when you place within the top 3 of any GPP of 5,000 plus entries. Head over to awesemo.com/announcements/avatar or simply Google search Awesemo Avatar for instructions on how to download it. Of course, I always love seeing those Awesemo avatars there in the top of the leaderboard. Next question that we have over here is how do you feel about Larson being in the back? Should I play Elliott?
I feel like it's like in a similar boat to his teammate Chase Elliott. I think they can work their way up through the field just very, very quickly. I'm not overly concerned about it. I'm a little bit more concerned with Larson because he's starting second and Chase Elliott's starting, 6th place. So, it's a little bit harder because he doesn't have that place differential upside that Chase Elliott did. It's just they should be up there so quick. And if they get up front, you're going to be kicking yourself for baiting them. So you can certainly play both of them.
Best play under 7K on DraftKings.
I know he burned us last week, but I'm going back to that Cole Custer. Well, I like him a lot today.
Favorite manufacturer in general today?
I'm a big fan of the Ford cars for the Team Penske, like Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Brett Keselowski. Although I wasn't really thinking in terms of that, but I was going to have a lot of Hendrick cars as well. But I guess Ford overall.
Michael says, he goes, I have less than 10% on Harvick, and I'm going to regret it.
Yeah, same. I have less than him too. I'm still considering raising him up a little bit from dropping Chase Elliott. But if I do that, I know Chase Elliott's going up front. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation there.
Who is the best play on FanDuel under 4,000?
Oh, let me pull that up.
You got to go to the bottom of the list here.
Under $4,000, man. Ooh, where is Daniel Suarez at over there?
He is Daniel Suarez.
Oh, yeah, he's $4,500.
$4,500
doesn't make the cut. Well, Anthony Alfredo's at $3,500 over on FanDuel, so I actually don't hate that. That's actually a pretty good price point.
I mean, I look at the 4,000. Haley's 4,000. Yeah. Ryan Preece is 4,000. I mean, those are kind of the two that stick out to me.
Yeah, I think it's kind of weird that Haley's more expensive than Alfredo over there.
Are you any lower on William Byron today following this news?
Just a little bit. It didn't change too much for me. I did drop his projections a little bit, which kind of moved him out of a decent chunk of lineups.
Yeah. Let's see here. With all the changes up front, what are your thoughts on Christopher Bell?
I think it helps him for sure because instead of having to fight off Larson and Chase Elliott at the beginning, he doesn't have to do that now, which I thought he would easily get past. So there's a path to Christopher Bell hanging up top and potentially getting past Brett Keselowski, but I just don't think it's that likely. But I do have a handful of Christopher Bell lineups today.
Out of all the Dominators, which one do you think has the least upside?
Probably, as of right now, probably Kyle Larson because he's in the rear. I love Kyle Larson today. The problem is he's going to the rear, so that early upside zapped. But by the time he gets up there, he's gonna have to chase down guys probably like Logano, Hamlin, Truex, which is not an easy task.
Here's in terms of a 2 Dominator build that Antoine's asking about: Keselowski and Truex or Blaney and Logano, GPP.
So in tournaments, if you want to get off that Keselowski exposure, I don't hate their ownership. I don't hate going to the second one just to get a little bit different because Logano starting 9th and Blaney starting 8th. You get some more place differential upside there. And both those guys can be lap leaders as well.
I think the question's got to be on the Brad aspect. And obviously this is more about single entry than it is multi-entry is, kind of, do you put him in or not to put him in? I think that's got to be the question in terms of single entry.
Yeah, I personally have him in. I realize some people want to get different. And it's kind of hard to trust the pole sitter these days, but Keselowski is so good at these track types, especially last year. And he's got a good pit stall, and I trust Team Penske today. I could easily see him leading the stage one. If he leads stage one and doesn't, wreck out of the race, there's a pretty strong chance he can be optimal.
Yeah, we talked about a fantasy cruncher of setting up your groups of dominators and try to get 2 or maybe 3 if you want in that group. That's one of the great things of overall our driver projections that Alex has on the site is that you can see what he is projecting for dominator points that can help you build those groups to get those lineups that you are going to be looking for. Matt would like you to rank these 3s on DraftKings. I'm guessing GPP. Blaney, Hamlin, Truex.
Hamlin, Blaney, Truex, I think was the opposite order there.
Yeah. Best placed 6,500 or lower.
I would say Chris Buescher's got the best finishing position upside there. Of drivers I have the most exposure to, it's Daniel Suarez because of the price point, but like raw points, I say Chris Buescher could outscore everyone down there.
Of course, we're sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. You can head over there and play some of their NASCAR prop ones. I mean, if you think you can hit 8 drivers and hit their number 100 times, I'm just saying.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I'll stick to, let me pick 2. I'll stick with the 3 times multiplier on that one instead of that one. Do you need 2 dominators on Super Draft?
I think for the most part, you're going to want at least 2 dominators in any format today, just because of the nature of this track.
Scott would like for you to explain why you're anti Michael McDowell today.
He's just starting so far up, and I'd rather play Chris Buescher, Ryan Newman, Cole Custer right there. I like Michael McDowell. I think he's a good driver. He's just not in the greatest equipment, but his history, these track types in Phoenix just is not encouraging enough for me to want to play him too much.
Of course, appreciate that's watching us live here on YouTube. Be sure to subscribe to Awesemo right here on YouTube. Hit that notification bell so you know when a show is live on the channel. I'll be back at 5 o'clock Eastern time for NBA Deeper Dive as myself and Terry will take a look at the NBA slate. Then right after us will be NBA Live 4 Lock with Emac and Eric. So keep it tuned here all day long as we get you ready for today's sports DFS action. How much Newman is too much Newman?
I think like 15 to 20% is a good amount of Newman. I think once you start getting to that 30% range, you're probably pushing it a little bit.
DraftKings Cash, Reddick, and Suarez, or Wallace and Custer?
I like Custer a lot in Cash, but I'm still going to side with the first option there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing with Bubba Wallace is it more of like you just need more data with this new team?
I want to wait and see approach for the most part. I just don't feel comfortable enough with it in Cash. Tournaments, yes, but Cash a little iffy.
Stenhouse or Newman or Wallace on FanDuel GPPs?
Well, I know we just kind of talked down Wallace a little bit, but between those 3 guys, I like Wallace the most.
Aaron asked about Brad or Blaney. I think the question has got to be, why would you choose Blaney over Brad outside of ownership?
You're choosing Blaney over Brad because of the price point. You're probably pivoting to another driver, maybe like a Truex or something like that in that price range, because Blaney's not going to lead the early laps. I know he's starting closer to the front, but he's going to have to pass a handful of cars first. Meanwhile, Brad Keselowski does not. So I imagine you're going to pivot the Keselowski to Blaney and probably pick up another guy starting close to the front.
Briscoe or Wallace?
I like Wallace a little bit more today.
Chastain, Reddick, Wallace, or Custer in a GPP?
Custer is my favorite, all those 2 guys.
What do you think about Hill because of the price and where he is starting?
It's just you can't trust those guys down there. Like, I know it looks appealing starting 37th, but I'd say there's a decent chance he finishes 37th. I mean, his average finish here is 36.5. So the ceiling is very, very low for Timmy Hill.
Buescher or Wallace?
I'd go Wallace there. It's close though.
I think we answered this question earlier. We'll bring it back up about Denny and Brad together in a single bullet on DraftKings.
Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite builds today is just pairing up Keselowski with Hamlin, lock up those early Dominator points. It's something I'm a big fan of today.
Lewis says, if you had 40% Elliott, what would you drop his ownership down to after going to the rear?
I personally wouldn't mind just keeping it at 40. If you want to just drop it a little bit and add some more Harvick or Logano, I wouldn't hate going 30 to 35%, but I don't think we should overact too much Chase Elliott.
Gabby says, based off the previous race, Keselowski and Logano don't adjust to the race getting later with tire wear. Will that affect them today?
I don't think it's a completely different track type. They're using a different aero package, so I'm not going to be willing to put too much stock into that today. Again, I mean, it could happen, but we haven't seen it yet, and I'm willing to bet on the numbers we saw last year of these track types.
Logano and Chastain or Hamlin and Reddick?
Hamlin and Reddick for me.
How are the cars arranged in the back with so many going there?
Ooh, it's a good question. I don't know the exact. It really doesn't matter to me, though. I mean, Larson and Chase Elliott, they're going to pass other guys that are in the back quite easily. And Cody Ware, that's not even going to be close.
I'm surprised it took this long to get this name out there. Davidson, okay for the last spot in DraftKings cash.
Not cash, maybe in a single entry GPP, but in cash games, what we always usually say, you should probably rework it a little bit.
Thoughts on Chase Briscoe?
I'm not getting a lot of Chase Briscoe builds today just because I prefer Kurt Busch more, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace. Now, I know it's appealing starting 26, just as those Stewart Haas cars have not looked that great, and he's a rookie, so he can have top 20 upside. It's just I really prefer getting the Kurt Busch there.
Can you leave 2,000 on the table in a FanDuel lineup?
I'm kind of looking to try to maximize my salary for the most part today.
How much Chase Elliott and Hamlin exposure for you? I'm over the field on Hamlin. I know I am.
Oh yeah, I think for both those guys combined, well, not combined, but like both those guys, I think being in the 30 to 40% range is probably a good place to be.
It's one of those things of just like, the price point of Denny Hamlin on DraftKings is just too good.
It's just too hard to pass up for a guy that's this good at the track type.
Who are your picks to win the race?
Well, I was thinking either Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, or Brad Keselowski today, but I'm going to go with one of the big three. I'm going to side with, well, I want to say Joey Logano, but I also want to say Chase. I'm going to go with Chase Elliott, even though he's in the back.
I was kind of thinking Joey Logano.
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of like him in this spot.
I do too. It's very close, very close.
Chase or Denny?
Denny just because of the price tag.
Yeah, that 9,900 price tag on DraftKings it sticks out to you. You know, it's kind of like you look at, Kevin Harvick and at 14,000 on FanDuel. Do you want to go there? Yeah,
it's definitely not as appealing for sure.
I mean, do you want to go to a 10,000 William Byron on FanDuel? I mean, I'm looking at ones where we see kind of, Trask can be like, we mentioned about Denny Hamlin, love the price on DraftKings, but over on FanDuel, you got to, he's 13,000. He's the third most expensive driver.
Yeah, it's definitely not as appealing. I mean, the main appeal on DraftKings is that sub 10K price point. Like that should not be the case today.
Yeah, I mean, the other one that we pointed out in terms of DraftKings was Cole Custer was another one that we put out there. Brad or Logano?
Brad's got an easier path to dominating. I like both those drivers. You can make a case for those being the two best plays today. It says Brad's got the easier path to dominate today, so I'll side with him, and he's a little bit cheaper.
We'll end on this question. Hill at 4,800 or Davidson at 5,400?
We'll go Davidson there just because he's one spot further back.
Appreciate everyone that tuned in today here to the NASCAR Live Before a Lock show. Of course, keep it locked here to also today. NBA Deeper Dive with myself and Terry will be here in 90 minutes from now, 5 o'clock each time. The following us will be NBA Live Before Lock. Of course, do want to thank our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Head over to monkeyknifefight.com right now. Take advantage of that promo that they do have going on for you. When you use the promo code Awesemo, you get an instant first match deposit up to $50. So good luck to everyone today, and I will see you in about 90 minutes from now for NBA Deeper Dive.